Hello, can you hear me now? I was muted. Brilliant. um, Thanks for the heads up, Cesar. Appreciate it. Hopefully you can hear me now. Alright. Let's go to the scaling test. Right, so in the light of hopefully having a mic now, I'm going to be starting over. So, hello guys. I'm Carmen. I'm one of the 3D modelers here at Firestorm Studios, and today we'll be working in Houdini, per usual. So I've been working on this project since November last year. We've not made quick progress. Turns out I talk a lot more than I work. But this is what we have as it is currently. Today we'll be working on the archways. And the main priority is fixing our little clipping issue over here. Now, as it is, I need to decide whether I want to scale the pillars or have the ability to scale the pillars or not. Because if the pillars stay stationary, right? If the pillars stay stationary, I can just adjust the size of the archways till they fit inside the pillars. But if the archways do not stay stationary and I actually want to resize them, change the shape, maybe I want them to be argument's sake a hexagon instead of a square, then I need to be able to adjust things. Now ideally this would be done with match size, but we've got too many things playing off of each other, so that's an option. Just quickly going to put the AC on right here. If it's going to turn on. Okay, it's on. So that's not quite ideal. The other option, I've not figured out how to do this. But ideally, we'd begin taking the size of the original lantern plus the width of the pillars, or the size of the pillars. We could potentially take the size of the pillars and then divide it by a number, and that should then allow the archways to scale accordingly. But this is very complicated. I've never done this before and I cannot code, so this is going to be a fun time. But I do want to be able to do it, so we're going to look at how we could potentially do this. We could do it with a wrangle. A wrangle would probably be the best option. Alright, let's do that. Hi Thor, how are you? Let me think how we're going to do this. Let's start with a cube. Let's keep it simple. We're going to do a cube, and then we are going to have another cube. Now this is only for testing because I don't want to break my usual MacBook. And then the last thing we are going to have is cylinder. Why not cylinder? And then we are going to get rid of our other objects. So the one cube is going to be bigger on the, let's get my grid, which axis? Let's do Z, why not? Alright, and let's make it thinner because I want to be able to see, what shape is, oh no, not height. Let's do that 1, and that's going to be 0.25, why not? Right. Now, we're going to grab a wrangle, attribute wrangle, and that goes into that. Now, how much do I know about code? Nothing. Can I give some tips on how to start learning Houdini? Right, good question. So I would say this is one of the difficult things to answer because it depends a lot on what you want to learn. But I found the best way to be learning, doing what you're doing now, watching a stream. Because if you watch a tutorial that's step by step, you only learn. Let me start over how I'm going to phrase this. If you watch a tutorial, typically what someone will do is they'll go and open up a network, like this one, or probably more organized, but yeah, like this one, and they'll go, I used a line. I then added normals. You're changing this value to that, this value to this, that value to that, and so on and so forth, right? They'll kind of walk you through what they use and when. But you don't get the thought process about why. For example, they'll say, I added a normal, but they won't tell you why they added it. Or they'll say, I added clear view, but why? So you never get the why behind their thought process. And the problem with that is, if you don't know why you're doing something, you can't utilize it for a different project. If I know, okay, the normal is going to determine the direction of the object, then I know if I'm creating another object where I need to determine direction or move something in a certain direction, I know I need normals for that. And if I know I want to create a mask, have something be more affected by a node than another thing, I need curve view because that's creating a mask gradient. Well, a gradient that can be used as a mask, rather. So the way I learned is I had a mentor that would work in my files actually, and he would demo stuff for me. I would say, I want to make this object, and he would demo it, and it was not linear. He didn't say you're going to use this node, you're going to use this node, and when you do this, this happens. No. He showed me the process. He explained every step, and sometimes at the end it didn't work. Sometimes he would build a whole network and none of it would work, and you had to figure out why. And by watching him figure things out, I learned so much more. Which is why I do things live when I'm streaming, because you learn more by watching my process and hearing about my thought process, why I'm doing things, why I'm trying things, why things didn't work. So that's one way, right? So the first tip is watch streams. Doesn't have to be mine, but watch Houdini streams. I know there aren't a lot of them, but do watch them, the ones that are there. Then next tip is, let's check my lantern, for example. I've talked a lot about lines, I've talked a lot about normals, I've talked a lot about curve view. Try to apply those techniques to your own projects. Now first, try to replicate what I do. That's a good start. But once you've replicated what I do, try to put your own twist on it. Maybe you don't want to do a lantern, maybe you want to do a tower, maybe you want to do a door, maybe you want to do anything really, a pattern, a repeating pattern, or anything along those lines. Will basically, by copying me, you learn the tools that you can use, but by applying it to your own projects, you learn more because you're putting a twist on it, and oftentimes you'll have to implement one extra node, or maybe you'll have to change the order of the nodes, or whatever that may be. So along those lines, you would learn more as well. So first thing, watch streams. Second thing, take a tutorial, do the tutorial, but put your twist on it and play with it. Because the biggest tip about Houdini is spend time in Houdini. Because you're not going to learn Houdini by just watching tutorials. Houdini is very practical. You kind of have to get your hands dirty, so to speak, and actually get into the software and practice. It's unfortunately one of those softwares where if you don't use it often enough, you lose it. I'm doing better now than I was doing in November, because in November I'd not used Houdini for a year, and I had to relearn all the nodes and all the functions. So I had to go into my old files, figure out what I did back then, just to get a rough idea of what I'm trying to create and how. So yes, I think those are the three main ones. For additional tips, enjoy it. Enjoy the process. You're not magically going to learn it overnight. Houdini is unfortunately one of the most difficult softwares to learn, which is a shame because it's so amazing and can do so many things. But it does take time to learn. Right, so how are we going to do this? Because I have very limited knowledge of coding, obviously. There is a way of specifying it. I think it's scale dot something. Can I scale dot x? Can I do just that? I just want to get something working. No, I cannot. Why doesn't it work? No, we're not going to code because that's going to go above the brain. It is scale.x, but then you have to specify something like you want a ramp or whatever it may be. Right, so we're going to simplify things a bit. We're not going to do that. We already have scale built into the cube, so that's fine. What first we're going to do is take this one's scale in Z, copy that parameter, paste that into that. Alright, so that gives us this scale. Alright, so that's functional. My problem is I want that value to go with this value, but in this case I'm using a paste where it is a reference. Can I paste two references on top of each other is the big question. Let's see what that is. Box size Z. Right. I want to temper that. Let's make it bigger. Do that at 2. 2. Maybe we should take 2 boxes for now. So let's do that. And then we are going to also copy that one. And I wonder if we can do plus paste where it's please. That plus that, and then if I scale that, okay, but let's see what's 1. 1 is that, which is bigger than that. Okay, I think this might work. I am learning Houdini to create procedural environments for UE 5 project, that one. Really good call. Procedural environments are brilliant for procedural environments. Procedural modeling is brilliant for environments. Are you more looking at the building side, or are you more looking at the plant tree mountain side? What are you working on? Because that is 2 different processes. I've done both to a certain degree. I do more props than I do full environments, but I really want to get into full environments as well. Right, so that works. I can take that value and add the other value to it. Sure. I suspect we're going to duplicate this one. Both. Well, that's fun. I actually want to do the same, not specifically for Unreal Engine necessarily, but for fun. No, not for fun. I would actually like to do that professionally, but I'm mostly a freelancer, so there's not much job opportunities for a freelancer to be that specialized. I did do a mountain range, wasn't very happy with it, for multiple reasons. It's actually very difficult to find tutorials on creating environments in Houdini that are free. So it's kind of a wing it type of situation. I know Rebelway does one, which is very good, but yeah. Right, so our archways are over here. That's the outer arch. Well, let's fix the outer arch first. Why not? So, at what point are we getting a scale? That width times that width. Brilliant. Okay. What we're going to do is actually template this. Don't die. Alright. Maybe not at that point. What would be a better area to template at? I think what we're actually going to do is template the pedestal because that should give us the width. But don't know where to learn. At this stage, I mean, in the future, I would really like to create a tutorial for Firestorm, but as I do mostly props, that's not quite in your area of expertise, and obviously the tutorials have not been created yet, but that is coming, guys. I am going to do a Houdini tutorial for Firestorm at some point. So, regarding currently, the place to go is Rebelway. As of this stage. It's not cheap, it's not free. But if you guys look at Rebelway, you can find tutorials that are more advanced. I've done one of their tutorials, or not one of their courses. I've done one of their courses. But yes. I'd say of the tutorials you can get, this is probably the best. As an entryway, I don't know if this is 3 actually. Let me go and find that. But it's not the full tutorial, so that is the downside to it. So where is it? Where is it? Let's share that, copy that, and then we can go into here. There we go. Right, so again, this one's free, but and it kind of gives you an introduction to what they teach and how they teach it. I've done some of these, and as I mentioned, I've done that one including as well. My biggest complaint is not procedural enough. It's a very good intro to procedural modeling, but it's less procedural than I learned to do things. So it is a bit of a, I would have liked to do it more procedurally. In fact, when I did the practical side, I did make it more procedural. So yes. Also, quick disclaimer: not affiliated with these people at all. I just did one of the tutorials. I learned something from it. It was cool. That is it. So I believe they've got other 3 ones as well if you go and look at YouTube. The only downside is, again, typically you're not going to get the full project because obviously they have to make money, as we all do. Right, so currently this is getting based on the width of this control, which is brilliant, but we actually want to add let's do that, and then add a class. Rebelway is good, and I've seen side effects for launch their learning paths. Yes. Rebelway, and well, obviously learning from side effects as well is brilliant. So definitely take a look at those as well. Right. To think, what am I trying to do here? I want to take the scale of the pillar, so that's going to be the box of the pillar, I believe. We're gonna have to pick a size. Let's change that to 1.2. And we copy that parameter. Paste reference on that. Hopefully I haven't broken anything. Copy that parameter and we are going to paste it into the scale of the archway. So that is all the way up here, somewhere. Yeah. Way broken. It's because I added the thing, so that is fine. So that's going to be base rates of reference. Alright, so that takes those values, and that's going to be times 0.4. No. Significantly smaller than that. Let's try 2.5. Nope. Okay, 0.25. Why not? Oh, this is the height. That is the height. I was not watching what I was doing. Right, so that one times. Let's start with the usual 0.5. Okay, so it's actually not going to be 0.5. Let's try 0. Come on. 0.05. I hate going to these cheating numbers, but anyway. I should probably divide instead. I should probably divide. Let's try that instead. Let me just quickly think. It's either going to be this way around. Nope, it's the other way around, so that's going to be 2 divided by... That gets us somewhere. To a point. Right. Right. Let's view that from the front. I suspect we'd want it to be round about there. Probably. Let's template the one at the bottom. Or view it actually. Now obviously this is breaking stuff, right? So but keep that in mind. That goes into there. Let's quickly void our small archways, just so we can see what we're working with. That is too small. So let's get it out a bit. And now the big question is, if I change the scale of the pillars, does this still work? Because it could be that we're playing with too many values at the same time. And if that's the case, well, tough. And that is in fact the case. That is the case. Alright, so if we do that, we're going to get a very, very broken network. Alternatives. What can we do instead? So obviously we can... We can... I wonder if we can plus that by that. Trying to think what the best way to implement this would be. The alternative is we do what? We could... I wonder if we can subtract it in some way. What if we split these out? Move scale of the box. We'll keep the divide by. And we do what else? That's going to be probably 0.5. And then let's think, what can we do? So we've got that, that's working from what I understand, or from what I remember rather. We can actually change that to the value it was. So let's do times 0.5. Right. So that was the value it was. Brilliant. I wonder if we can then take another transform. Delete channels on that. Delete channels on this, and then that's going to be 1. Delete. That's going to be 1. Alright. And then we take our box, copy that value, and we go into here, 1 minus, and we paste it to preferences. Take that. There's nothing, I think. See? That's adding it. So that's adding the width of that to that. If we do, no, can't do a match size. This one is really stopping me. Right, so we can't just minus it. We need a way. Take this 1. Can you do 1 minus? Size of the box. 0. No, let's try 10. Because one of our problems is we're actually dealing with the circular shape for the, or this, no, circular shape. Our lantern itself is not a square. So we're working with a radius instead of scale, which is very problematic actually. Because we're working with both radius and normal scaling, meters. Alright, so that is too small. 2.5? No, 2.25. Yep. 2.1. Right. Okay. Now the big question is, does that actually work? Now this is very question. Can one do character modeling in Houdini? If so, how? Probably not. Honestly, probably not. I mean, you could try. But for the character itself, you can't go better than ZBrush. For character UX, ZBrush is the way to go. What you can do is you can create clothing in Houdini. You can create, what do you call it? I'd say clothing is probably the biggest part of character which you can do. You can do rigging as well. You can... Yes, it's not the best software for character modeling, guys. I'm not gonna lie, it's not the best software for characters. it's very good for environments. It's very good for environments. It's very good for props if you need to create multiple of the same object in different variations. So for that, it's good. But yeah, no. Alright, so that breaks at some point. Because this is scaling too much. So that means let's change that to 4 so we can just have something to work with. Let's see. That's going to be 2.5. The problem is if I go smaller than that, it actually doesn't work either. This is minusing too much, I think. So back to 2.2. Let's see, transform. That works at a value of 2.1. And then let's see. The problem here is if we scale this, it works up to a point, but this size is increasing a lot quicker than the other size. So what can we do? What if we flip it around? Instead of having it this way, we take this scale and minus that with that. -1 gives us that. So we don't want to be uniform scale. What can we do? That will give us again the same value. 2.1 will be our number, but the problem is it scales too much. I mean, why many professionals use Houdini? A few reasons, which is not very specific. So the first reason is it is procedural. So the benefit of having it procedural is, take this lantern for example. Let's say you are working in a, not necessarily a medieval, but let's say medieval fantasy type of setting, and you need to create 10 variations of lanterns. To model each lantern individually would take a lot of time. But right now, with how things are set up, again, we've broken the network a little bit, so it might be a little iffy, but we're going to work with it. I can change the width of my lantern at a click of a button. I can adjust the height at a click of a button. I can decide I want a different shape to the pattern on the side. Right? I can decide I want a different sized roof. I can want a taller roof. I can want a shorter roof. I can change that. I can change the height of the ornament, which basically scales the ornament up or down. I can scale it uniformly, make it bigger. I wouldn't advise doing that, but you can do that. So you kind of get the point. There's also a separate control. It's not at this point. I've built it in another place of the network where I can change the profile of the rooftop. But you see where I'm going with this. You can very quickly, at the click of a few buttons, change the lantern, create a new lantern, and have that work for creating your multiple lanterns for the project. You can then repurpose parts of this network to use in a cathedral setting. Maybe you are doing archways, maybe you are doing intricate stained glass windows that have a lot of arches. This network can be broken apart, plopped into there, and you can quickly generate stuff. Right, so that's one side. For environment work, if you build a procedural network like this, you can very quickly generate different shaped buildings in a procedural way that can very quickly then be integrated into your environment. Even if it's just used as a placeholder, it's quick. So there's that. Then along with that is it's changed a bit. Okay, so this has changed, but you can use Houdini for movie stuff as well in terms of creating backgrounds. Now, nowadays, we're using Unreal Engine for that a lot of the time, but that has been done in Unreal Engine before. Well, not in Unreal Engine, in Houdini before. And then, of course, can't get better than Houdini for special effects. But that is more on the movie side rather than the game side. But a lot of the game stuff is built into Houdini as well, in terms of magic and explosions, fun stuff, fire. But I believe you can do it in Unreal Engine now as well. So that's sort of the gist of it. And fun fact, I've heard quite a lot of people saying that Houdini is one of those software that's really beneficial to them, especially when you're just getting into the industry. Downside to it is it takes a lot longer to learn than most other softwares. So if you want to learn Houdini, you need to really want to learn Houdini because you need to spend a lot of time in it. And that's oftentimes why people don't learn Houdini, because it is a huge time commitment. It's not easy. I mean, I've been using Houdini for almost 3 years, and you guys can see I'm struggling today. Mainly because I'm trying something I've never tried before. So you guys get to watch me suffer, so enjoy. But yeah, that is the gist of it. Alright, so. That is not an option. And these values are not playing well off of each other. I wonder. Let's avoid that for a second. I'll just see what this does if I minus the value of the no, don't break, of the well, that gives me that. The problem is, again, the scale of the lantern itself is really screwing me over. That's one thing that's kept me from learning how to use Houdini. Yes, I know. It's not the easiest software to learn, but it's so satisfying when it works. But yes, I mean, I get it. I would never say don't learn it, but I will be honest in the fact that it's not easy, and I wouldn't say it's not fun. It is fun, but it is very frustrating to learn. I know that thing has expired. I've implemented a different software, a different thing for virus protection, but I still get the warning for the old one. Alright. So, what if I use a match size for the scale of the what? For the scale of the archways, and then let's just do that for now, get that working, and this will probably fail because it's doing basically the same thing as a transform, but at least we'll have fun. So let's do match size, and we are going to take that, and this one is, which one? Geometry to move and resize. That is correct, and then we need to grab probably this thing, and that goes into, yeah. Right, now obviously that is as wide as the, don't want to do uniform scale. Okay, but that's going to give me the exact size. I do not want it to give me the exact size. I want, well, yeah, no, that's not gonna work. That is not gonna work. What is the scale on this width of this? 0? No, that's a movement. It's technically 1. It's technically 1. And this scale is radius. Is there a way to convert radius? Surely there's a way to convert radius into the actual arc start, arc end, out of radius. Inner radius. There should be a way to match that to its actual scale. In theory, the match size should do that. We're gonna run with it. Let's run with it. Why not? Okay, so that goes into that. That match size goes into that. That technically works. Right? We only want, I believe it's a Z. Yep. Actually, I can't see if it's a Z. Scale to fit, and that is, let's see. Technically we want X, so let's take X and do that. Right. Okay. So let's then take the transform, remove that, minus that, gives us not what we want. What does just this give us? Let me just start from the beginning, yeah. Right, so the minus was not working. Minus 1 is too skinny. But if I'm not mistaken, this is bigger than it used to be. So, but the real tell is if the value is still 2.1, that means it is actually the same. And it's not. Right. So my thought process here is, how am I going to explain this? I am trying third time to learn Houdini. The fact that you're stuck with it is brilliant. If you can stick to it, that's always a good sign. So you're a werewolf. Most people try it once and then don't bother again. But it is such valuable software to learn that it's good if you can stick to it. Let's try 120. I don't want to translate this. That goes down. And let's get that viewed because I can't see anything with the wireframe. Right. So that is ultra big. Let's go up, up, up. There we go. And then that's going to be, try 7. 6. 5, maybe? No. It's between that, so it's going to be a very odd number. Which is not ideal. It's not ideal either, at all. It's probably going to be, yeah, it's going to be that very odd number. Right, so But the problem is we're not working with a constant scale here. Ideally, we'd want this to work by 1. Because technically we're scaling now. We're scaling the match size by 1.69, which is then getting subtracted. So we don't technically want an additional scale. This needs to work with just the value of 1. Which it does not. Does not work with the value of 1. So, what if we scale this thing? Let's add a transform here. I am making a very messy network here, but anyway, let's just get it working. We can always refine it later. So that's going to be a transform, and then that scale is going to be by that much. Right. But then the big question is, does this still work when we scale the pillars? Because that is why we are trying this. If it doesn't work, then I've just wasted an hour. But we'll see. Right, so that is that, and then this box goes into there. I've just wasted an hour. I've just wasted an hour. Right, so that's not going to work either. You know what we actually need? I'm getting demotivated seeing AI. Dirt. Reason being, at least at this stage, as a freelancer, 90% of my job is fixing AI models, because they're that bad. Right, so that's one part of it. The other part of it is the biggest complaint my clients have with AI is it can give very specific requests to AI, and AI can give something that aligns with the request, but it doesn't have the ability to help a client when the client themselves does not know what they want, which is often the case. They want something along this line, but they don't really know what they want. They can't give that back and forth that person can. It can't give that creative input because AI is not creative. You tell it what you want and it gives it to you. And then along with that is stylistically, it's inconsistent as hell. Even the for drawing side, which is technically the more advanced side of AI at this point. I mean, the 3D modelers are fine at this stage. But in terms of the illustration drawing side, concepts are bad. Quite frankly, yeah, it looks pretty, but have you zoomed in on an AI concept? As a modeler, I need to look at it and try and figure out what it's trying to say. And there's no logic behind it. AI does not have a lot of logic either. So not only is it not that creative, in fact, it's not creative at all, but it's also just bad. Kind of adding more to that, it's not good for your AI or to ignore it. Yes, I'm pretty confident AI won't steal my job, but I'm also pretty confident that I'll either have to utilize it to some degree in my workflow, or it'll be something I just need to keep my eye on. Maybe it evolves to a point where it's having a bigger influence. So what I do is I keep an eye on AI and see if I will ever need to use it in my workflow, and if so, how. Because it doesn't help to ignore it, because it is here and it's here to stay. What I suspect, it'll take an area of our workflow. I don't think it'll replace modelers as a whole. where I do see AI having an application is, let's take retopology. AI will struggle to create facial topology that aligns with the specific needs of a project. But if, for example, you said you want this edge flare around this area, that edge flare around that area, this one there, then I think it would be great if AI could fill the blanks. So there is that side of things. But then AI isn't taking your job. It's just making your job quicker, because figuring out the edge flow is the difficult part about retopology. It's not filling the blanks. Filling the blanks just takes time. And it's unproductive, because once you've figured out the difficult part, you're literally manually adding those edges and faces. So for that, yes, by all means, AI can take the filling the blanks part, because that takes no experience and no brain power, and it takes an unnecessary amount of time. So for that, I can see application. But you kind of see what I'm getting at here. I don't think it'll steal all our jobs, and but I do think, again, keep your eye on it, see what it's doing, and go from there. Right. So I think I'm going to put a pause on this scaling problem we've got here, because it's taken a lot of time and I want to work on other stuff. So now this is kind of where, in this project specifically, the scaling is technically functional. So yes, it would be nice if I could scale the pillars and my archways adjust accordingly, but most likely that won't be an option, and if it is an option, it's going to take a lot of time for me to figure out how. What? No, that won't work either. Ideally, there should be a way to figure. Sorry, did not sleep enough last night. So ideally, there should be a way to figure out how to get the distance between that pillar, and that would give us the scale. But I do not know how to do that. So I know the data I would require to do that. Do not know how to get the data. So it is what it is. We're putting it on pause. Instead of working on that, let's remove the scale. This should be control for the width again. So that's going to be width, copy wrap parameter, and then we're going to paste it into the transform. First delete channels, and then paste relative reference, and then that's going to be multiplied by 0.5, I believe. No, right. So this is why I duplicated my network to put it at testing. So we're gonna grab that one, and this should be still functional. Right. We've achieved nothing in this hour. By we, again, mean I. But that is fine. Sometimes you play around with something and it doesn't work. It's part of the joys of 3D modeling, so to speak. Right, so what I do still want to fix is the fact that this clips through. So I do want to fix that. I am going to fix that. So let's do 4, 5. And the reason this was broken in the first place is because I changed the scale of the pillars when I fixed the top. Right, so that's actually not small enough. That's actually 5. Nope, too small. 4, 3. And then let's try 2. No, no. I'm making a mess of things. Let's try 3, 5. Yeah, okay, brilliant. So that is clipping less. It's not perfect. In fact, it's still clipping. Why is it still clipping? Let's quickly remove that. I just want to see whether it's the big archway that's clipping or the little one. At this stage, I'm starting to think it might be the little ones. Let's see. Let's see. It's going to be merged down. See our full picture. What is going on here? Definitely broken something there. Alright, so that is that one. Sure. Let's see how we can fix that. Alright. Let's quickly undo that. I just want to see which area I broke. I suspect there was a merge there. It's still functional at this point. So why does it break when I remove this? Weird. Okay. We'll work with it. Right, so we already know this one needs to be 0.435. Very horrible number. Thanks Carmen for motivating me this year. I will going to learn Houdini and create some awesome works. That's brilliant news. Do that and update me. Tell me how it goes. I'm very interested. I want to be part of the journey, so to speak. Learning Houdini is fun. I know it's daunting, but it really is fun. You got it. Let's do that one. 8. No. I'm making a mess of things again. I'll worry about my height a little bit. Sure. That's a translate. Try one. And that gives us that. So we do want to translate a little bit. There we go. But that is still clipping at the top. So I suspect that's a shape issue. See what we can do there. That goes into there. That goes into there. That goes there, and there we go. That is actually not ideal. Let's undo that. So we do want that there, but we can probably translate a little bit. We'll have to adjust the shape again, but let's translate a little bit. Let's see. Oh, that's scaling. That is translate. Right. So it's definitely too wide. Alright, so to fix the width, we have to take this one a little bit down. Because I don't want to scale on the width really. So I'd rather adjust the shape. Come on. There we go. Around about there. And then we can take this a little bit up. And that'll fix that. I wonder if we can remove that one because I don't actually like what that one does. So take that. We'll probably have to flatten that out, never your mind. Alright. We're very much similar to where we started actually. But anyway. Let's do that. That we take into there. So I do want flat areas, and I actually want that the same for the large archway up top. Because, as it currently is, this is very rounded, right? Don't want that. So let's implement another thing there. I wonder if there's a way to... No. Make an individual one. linear. These. But I don't want that one to be linear. That to be linear and this to be... Let's change that to Bezier. Can I get a little control on this side, please? Okay, let's undo that. We're going to undo that, and I'm going to grab this one and make that linear. And then this should hopefully stay curvy. It is. I've somewhat broken it, but it's okay. Right, so what we're going to do is make that curvy. Move that over. We're getting an interesting shape here. I wouldn't say it's necessarily the shape we want, but it is an interesting shape. Alright, so let's see. What can we do to make this prettier? There. Going to move this a little bit up. Potentially. I don't know if we can remove that one. Yeah. That's better. We're actually getting straight now. Alright, now we can do that. And that's more like the one I want. Now, for some reason, this height is too tall. I'm not sure why, because it was not too tall. So let's just quickly look at that control height. Let's try 4-5. That moves everything. Why does that move everything? We're gonna jipper the system. We're gonna scale it here. If anyone asks, no, I did not. Alright. Sure, there's that. Ideally, I'd want a cube on these sides as well. To show that connection. Possibly we'll do that. Possibly we'll do that. Possibly not. We'll see. Right, so obviously I broke the size and scale of the flower thing, but that can be fixed. So I'm not too worried about that. Do that. Right. And then flower placement thingamajig. Where is it? Merge, transform. It's that one. Right. See what the transform is doing. Let's check height. Make that transform. Oh, that's scale. We want to translate, so that's going to be maybe 3. Not quite 3. Choose 7. Nope. 8. Alright. The width is too wide, so let's change that a little bit. That's gonna go a little bit higher. I really dislike doing these little changes because it's not as procedural as I would like it. But at this stage, we've not got much choice. It's one of those things. Let's try. There we go. Almost. Let's try 7. Because what I do want is I do want a connection here. Because it needs to connect to the archway, because otherwise it's floating, and why is it floating? So that works, technically speaking. We do not have our squares on either side, so where's that coming from? It's coming from here, and that's getting merged into there. So what we can do is not copy to points because that's going to take a bit of effort. So let's do transform. Copy transform maybe? Let's do copy and transform. Do that one. Now technically speaking, we'll need it on the edge, but we'll work with it. Right, let's view that as it is. I want to see what the translate would be. 4.5 probably. No. Is it going to be one of those very odd numbers? Yes, it is. 7.5. So technically we need to move copy and that one into there, and then that's going to be the same value actually without the minus, I suspect. Alright, there we go. It's not perfect though. It's not perfect though. What if we do 4? That's better. Brilliant. Okay, that was easier than I thought. Right, so that goes into there, that goes into there, this gets merged together. Might have been easier than I thought, but it's still not perfect because this is clipping through. Don't want it to clip through. It is a minute amount, but it is enough to be a problem. So what are we going to do? We are going to maybe adjust the scale a little bit on the box, make it a teeny bit bigger, make that like a 8. Right, so that fixed that. And then we can kind of decide whether we like the height on it. I think we might want it a little bit taller. Let's try it taller and see what it looks like. No. Okay, we'll keep that as is. At some point, I need to implement something in these corners. Because right now it's quite plain. Too plain. Don't like it to be plain. So, let's actually do that. Why not? That'll be fun. Now this will be less procedural. So we kind of have to decide at this point, are we happy with the shape of the arches? Are the shape of the arches going to change? I'm going to say no. We're going to go with the safe answer. The answer is no. So, what we can now do is we can template these curves and use this as a guideline. Now, the reason I say use it as a guideline is because we can already see what roughly the thickness of our sweep is, because we have to take that into account because we don't want the next sweep, which is going to be the little curves and curls. We don't want those to be clipping through. So we can kind of use that as a guide for distance. Alright. Now, we don't have a very good guide for the scaling of the eventual archway, which is not ideal. Actually, what we can do is at the transform point, well, it is upside down, which is not ideal. That's not going to give us this full thing. Could merge it all together. Let's do that because then we can actually see what's going on. Let us do that. So we are going to create, maybe on this side, and it's going to be a Bezier curve most likely. I haven't used curves in a while, so we'll see how this goes. Alright, so I think it's this one. Yep. Maybe we let's do that side, and then we can manipulate it around. We'd be adjusting this, so we wouldn't leave this as it is. But just as a starting point, dump that over there. Now we do want to finish curve, and then we want to drag point with no curve actually. We want to start manipulating this. I suspect we're probably going to delete that one. Can we delete it? How can we delete it? Share, align, draw, shift. I want to delete a point. How can I delete a point? Apparently not like that. Let's do points. Ooh, I've broken something. Alright, so let's undo that. Go to that. We don't actually. Alright. I've changed my. We're probably going to start over. Let's try curve again. Bezier. I just want to see whether I can get a normal menu again. Because the other one just doesn't make sense to me. But I did like that shape. So that goes there, there. Okay. Let's do that. That's not going to be templated. Let's go down and template this one. Brilliant. Okay. Back off. We can draw our curve again. So I'm going to probably take it from there. I'm not quite sure what shape I want actually. Do I want similar? Do I want slightly different? What do I want? Alright, so that gives us that again, which is again not quite ideal. And hide hints, insert point. Let's adjust. Why can't I adjust that? That is that one, orient, no. I wonder if I can reset to default viewing or something. Default settings would be ideal, because right now, oh wait, I can adjust it. I can adjust it. It is fine. Now this is again why I said I haven't used it in a while. Actually, I've only probably used it once or twice, so it's not my preferred method. Lines are my best friend, curves are my enemy, to put it mildly. Right, so I want that one, so I can adjust this one. Right. Now this will be mirrored, hopefully, at some point. So let's do that. Can I add another curve? Yes, I can. Add a little one over there. And then maybe another over there. And it seems like I can actually attach the two curves to each other, which is brilliant. Or maybe not. Maybe not. It does look that way. But I don't think it quite lines up. Which is fine, I guess. Let's do that. And then that goes maybe into there. And we can add another one during that way. And yeah, basically fill the blanks till we like the shape. Because it's fun, apparently. Possibly. Right, so that goes into there. We need something in this little corner here. Not sure what. This is Houdini. Yes, it is Houdini. Not VFX Houdini. Well, it is the same software. I'm not using it for VFX though. So bear that in mind. Alright, so that goes into there. No, I don't want to draw another curve. I want to grab this little piece. Do that. Now we can probably... That looks a little bit ugly. But I don't really know what this looks like once I've sweeped it. But let's work with it. I don't like that at all, actually. Okay. Let's grab that one. And see if we can delete it. Brilliant, we can. Right, so let's view that from a distance and see what we're working with. No, don't want that. Let's get rid of that. Go to there. Don't want to see the points. So let's shrink that to that parameter. We'll see whether we like this. So let's plug that into a sweep, which is going to actually need the name first. So let's name it. I think we're using names. We're grouping it. Group. And that group goes into there, and this goes into that, and this we're going to name curves. And then we are going to plug that into the merge, and then that is going to sweep curve, sweep flower, and then we do that potentially, and that gets merged. What is going on there? I built it at the top, needs to be at the bottom. Right, starting over. We could potentially move this. We could, and rotate it, and do all the things, but I don't think we're going to do that actually. But I actually want to view the full picture, so let's just see what this actually looks like. Let's remove the template. Don't crash. Please don't crash. Alright. Why is it still templated there? Square perspective. In wireframe, that's why. That shaded. Where's the curves at the bottom? Right. Right. Very, very broken network we've got here. Right, so if that merges together, that is obviously way higher than we need it to be. So we're going to go with our first option, which was actually to do this placement here. Rather than, or we merge it later. No, wait, well, let me think. Could do the merge later, then we could just see how that looks like. No. We're gonna rebuild it. Right, so that's going to be a curve. Bezier. We're going to plug that into that. Because we do want a group. Right, so I'll go to front view. Now this is a bit difficult because we can't actually see the scaling. But we're gonna work with it. So, I wonder if we can template, build it on the scale, but template that. Yes, we're gonna do that. Right, so I'm gonna build it over here, but I'll be able to view what it actually looks like up there. Right, so, moving down. Down and on. So, let's see, what are we gonna create? I do like the curve idea, but I'm not entirely sure whether I like the curve I initially created. So there is that. So maybe we do more like that. Now this will clip a bit through the archway, but it's fine. Let's see what that looks like at the top. Alright, so that does that. So we need to technically move all of this. We need to move all of this. So let's grab that. Grab this curve. Be on that mode. Grab the curve. And move it all. Alright, so let's see what that does. That is fine. We need to move the end. So we can grab this one. I believe move it up. And in. No, don't go that way. Grab that one. And then we can just flip it. Now this takes a while to update, which is not quite ideal because we've got too many things playing off each other. But be that as it may. Alright, so that is functional. We've got a little area to fill up here. Don't quite like the curve on that either, so we'll have to fix that. And then we've got a little piece over there. So what we're going to do is probably grab this piece and remove it. Remove it. And then we're going to manipulate it from here. I actually want that to be independent, so holding control so I can manipulate the one side without the other one being majorly affected. Can do that. Alright. Lost too much of the curve. Why not? It's not perfect because this is obviously a bit disconnected. Let's do that to fix that area, and then we can use this one to fix that area. Right, brilliant. That is working, that is functional. We obviously need more curves. So, we potentially grab it from that side, or we can manipulate it from that side. Let's do that. So, we're going to create a second curve, and zoom out of it and make it a little bit easier. We want it around about that point, probably. So let's do that. I actually like it just like that. Let's keep that like that. And we obviously need to connect it somewhere at the bottom, so let's do that. Can I zoom out a little bit? There we go. Let's try from here. Undo that because that is clipping through. I did undo twice, and I actually prefer the shorter little curl there, so I'm going to leave that as is. And then let's see what we can create here. We need to be further down. So that's going to be from this point probably. Let's see. Okay, so it is from that point, but a little bit more sideways. Trying to see what type of shape we might like. Undo that last one. Let's manipulate this a little bit, so that's going to go into there. We grab this one, and then that is a very ugly curve. Let's not do that. Let's grab this one and see what we can. Don't want this to be straight. We want this to be curved. I suspect the problem is it's too big. Right. Starting over on that one. Let's grab these. Remove that. It's probably easier to fill it from the top, maybe. Let's try that. Let's see. So we're going to grow from there. This is going to go that way. That is going to go that way. And then we'd want a little piece going up there. Let me quickly undo that. Let's go more that way. I like that somewhat. Alright, so let's do that. And then we can do a little piece over here. Goes up maybe? Let's do it over, no, I want that little piece there, so we're going to go from here. And then there. It's too far forward, so we'd want that a little bit more behind. Not so back and forth on this one, but once we have it, it will look pretty. So let's do that. Brilliant. Okay, moving on. We also need a little piece at the bottom here. Let's see what we got. I suspect we need a little more detail in this area. So what I'm going to do is going to go there, create a curve. It's a very ugly curve, but we'll change that in a second. And then go about there. And then we're going to manipulate it into place. So that goes there. This goes probably around about there. No, not the handle. I want the actual thing. So let's undo that. Grab that. And hopefully it's not allowing me to remove the individual point, which is very annoying. Because I technically don't want to move the handle. I want to move the entire thing. It's also very slow, which is very inconvenient. Let's see what we can do there. Okay. We're making progress. We're making progress. I'm going to put this one down here. And then we are going to smooth it out, and it should, in theory, be okay. And then we can hopefully, not that one, undo that one. Grab this one and just move it a little bit this way. Because it is a little bit off. Grab that one. Right. Now the curve is probably not going to be correct, so what we're going to do is create an orange long curve. And I do want the same sweep, but I might have to edit some parameters, so I'm going to connect that up to that, and then this will have the curves removed, and the other one will have the flowers removed, and then if all goes to plan, we can then take the sweep and just remove it and change it to curves. There's already a curve one. Not sure what that is, probably for those little pieces, but okay. So that's fine. And then let's view it all together. Needs to be mirrored. Needs to be mirrored. So let's do mirror. Before the curve. group. Why not? So take that, another. That goes into there. Brilliant. That is working. We're making progress. So let's go to perspective. The only problem is I believe our curves might be flattened out. Let's see what it gives us. Alright, so first things first, we're going to have to remove the normal thing. So let's do that, and then no change. No. Yeah, okay, that's fine. No change. Brilliant. Brilliant. Now, I'm not quite happy with that actually. Let's make the curve a bit bigger. Potentially. So that's this one. We are going to scale it to 0.1 maybe. And we are going to cap it. Alright. I'm not sure how I feel about it. I'm not sure how I feel about it. We've also broken something. So, see what this one is called. That is also called curves. Let's see, curves big, why not? And then this is curves. So, let's do that one. Scale is still broken on this. Let's try and reduce the scale. Does nothing. What is this actually sweeping? It is sweeping that, and it is fine on that. Why is it broken? Oh, this is still referring to, yeah, let's do that. Curves big, and remove the old curves. And then that should, in theory, be fine. Then we can change that back to 0.05. And if we view it all together, it should, in theory, be working now. In theory. Brilliant. So that's working. I didn't quite like how these curves are scaling in the corner here. So what I'm going to do is quickly select that one. And we are going to adjust the high scale along curve. There is already one. There is already one. Let's avoid that one. Alright, plus scale along curve. This is already getting some form of a scale, but from what? From what is it getting a scale? Because this is technically zeroed out. In theory. Alright. So technically this one needs to flip. Right? And that one needs to move in. So let's fix that. That's going to go to there. And that one needs to move in. Right, so we're going to go to front view. And we're going to start manipulating things. So that one, if I can edit it, needs to go a little bit that way. And then that one needs to also go a little bit that way. Nope, not like that. Let's undo that. Take that and then just a little bit. That might be more than a little bit. We'll see if it actually helps and makes a difference. Okay, that is better. And then this one's scale is very wonky because it's in reverse and I can't actually see what I'm doing here, so I'm just going to change that to wireframe. So this entire thing needs to flip. So I'm actually going to remove it, because removing it is probably quicker than actually flipping it. So let's do draw curve, and we are going to go this way, because why not? That's probably still the wrong way. I can't tell. No, that's fine. Right. That is fine. So we can do that, and then let's flip that way. It looks very bad at the moment. Do not worry, we're going to fix it. So that goes into there. This goes. No, what have I done? Let's grab that. There goes that. There it goes into there. Then we need to change. Very important. Change it into the actual selection mode, not the drawing mode. Right, so we do that, and then we can scale that and move this one. Don't actually like what that's doing, because that's giving me a very ugly corner. Let's quickly undo that. And remove that. See if we can get a interesting shape from this. Grab that area, we can start to get a curve from that. The curve is, however, clipping through there, so that needs, the entire thing needs to move to the right. So I'm going to grab that and then move it. So that can go to there, and then we can grab that one. Actually, this one probably. No, other one. It's going to be that one. That one goes into wherever, really. I wonder if we can actually manipulate that a little bit more. So we're going to grab that one. That goes into there. And then we can go that way. I want that to connect into that, and I want this to be more curved. So we're going to play with that, and then this one is going to go more that way, possibly. Move that a little bit down so that we get a nicer curve. There we go. There we go. So let's view the whole thing, and we can actually see what we're working with. That goes into there, and then we are going to do smooth shaded. That is better. It is more detailed. It's not quite what I want though. Might change the design at some point, but I do think it kind of does what it should. The only thing is this area is now looking very empty. So I'd want to add something to this area in order to balance things out. But I mean, it does the job for now. It does the job for now. I think half the problem is this is very delicate, very detailed, where the rest of the model isn't. So it's kind of looks like something is missing. I could potentially make it thicker. Let's try that for argument's sake. That's going to be 1.5. And then we can actually make the ends smaller. We Maybe not that. I think that's improvement. There is something missing in this top corner, so we'd probably want a little piece going that way as well. Probably. Let me save before I continue. Let me save. Saving is important, which I never do. I never save, especially not on the stream, which is risky because I have lost work before. It's never made me late for a deadline, but it has costed me time. So, moral of the story: save. Successfully shaved. Right, brilliant. So let's add that little piece, and then we'll go from there. I should have split this across multiple curves. That would have allowed me a little bit more flexibility. I did not though, so we're gonna work with it. Alright, so that goes into there. This needs to be a curve. And in terms of placement, it's kind of at that little bump there, so let's go there. Ooh, that is awful. That is awful. Let's move. Go into that, and then let's remove that little point there, and we grab this one. Put it that way. Now this is bigger, so that is slightly a problem. And this is why I said I should have split it out, because then I could adjust this scale independently. What I could do is actually adjust the angle. So let's try that. Going to grab this one, pull that up. Now this is a bit difficult because I can't actually see what I'm adjusting. Right, so that needs to go more that way. That needs to move probably into there. Go a bit this way, and then we can adjust that. Now it's going too high up, so that's not really ideal either. The problem is the angle over there, so if we can fix that angle, can't do that. We should be okay. So if I adjust it that way, it follows that direction. So we need to adjust it the opposite direction. And then adjust this one accordingly. So that goes into there. There. And then we can grab this one a little bit up. And potentially add a bigger curve. Potentially. Just give us a little bit of something up at the top. Alright. Let's see. Perspective. There we go. I think that somewhat works. I don't quite like what it's doing up here though. Most likely, the curves should have been facing in the other direction. Like have the little thingamajig at this area. Because right now, the top is very heavy. But it is functional, so there is that. Can I get rid of the curve menu? Because I don't want to see the curve. Is it templated? No, I've just got it selected. Right, brilliant. got rid of that. Right, so next time what I'll probably do is start adding curves in this area. Something I've not tested is, does my scaling still work? So let's find out. Oh, that's the ornaments. We want the main body. It does not. We're probably going to have an independent transform for it. Because height obviously doesn't work. Width also doesn't work. Okay, so the reason it doesn't work is because it's taking the same scaling principles as the flower. So I think that'll be a problem for Friday. So on that note, thank you guys for joining me, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.